Hi, I know nobody really watches this channel as of now, but I wanted to tell you why I haven't uploaded a video in a while. It is because my granddad, on whose birthday, May 14th, I started this channel, who is a person who introduced me to the world of literature and classic books, is not well. He fractured his vertebra when he had a fall from his bed. And then, because of the long duration in bed, he developed disorientation and confusion. Has been saying all sorts of things. So I feel very numb because this is somebody. He lives alone with my gran. Now they have a full-time nurse at home, but this is somebody who's been a huge influence on who I am, how I developed as a person. He was a messenger boy in the ARP during World War II, and then he joined a shipping company after growing up. This is a Swiss-based shipping company called Volcart. It was the same company for which his father worked before him, and then he retired. And, now this has happened. So I just thought I'd tell you some of the key bits of literature to which he's introduced me. One of his favorite books is Goodbye, Mr. Chips by James Hilton, and this is the opening line, which he still, despite the confusion and everything, he's apparently saying it. When you are getting on in years, but not ill, of course, you get very sleepy at times, and the hours seem to pass like lazy cattle moving across a landscape. It was like that for Chips as the autumn term progressed and the days shortened till it was actually dark enough to light the gas before call over. And this is what I keep telling him, He was getting on in years, but not ill, of course. Indeed, as Dr. Merivale said, there was really nothing the matter with him. My dear fellow, you're fitter than I am. I agree. Brahms did a lot of bodybuilding and played hockey, so he's definitely fitter than I am. You're past the age when people get these horrible diseases. You're one of the few lucky ones who's going to die a really natural death. That is, of course, if you die at all. You're such a remarkable old boy that no one ever knows. One of my Brahms' favourite poems is The Rider at the Gate by John Masefield, and I share his love for this poem with him. And, I like evocative poems like this. The Highwayman by Alfred Noyce is another very evocative poem. The Rider at the Gate is a warning for Julius Caesar. A windy night was blowing on Rome. The cressets guttered on Caesar's home. The fish boats moored at the bridge were breaking the rush of the river to yellow foam. But my Gramps' favourite lines are these. Caesar turned in his bed and muttered. With a struggle for breath, the lamp flame guttered. Calpurnia heard her husband moan. The house is falling. The beaten men come into their room. There's a rider who comes to the gates of Rome and says, I have a message for Caesar. And the guard at the gate doesn't let him in, saying that Caesar is asleep. But Caesar is actually muttering in his sleep, because there is a premonition there. And the rider says, there is a warning, tell him to beware of his friends. And who are you? I'm Pompey. Caesar's enemy, Pompey. It's a very evocative poem. Rather short, actually, not as long as The Highwayman. And it was my Gramps who introduced me to Dickens, and I absolutely love everything ever written by Dickens. But my favourite is The Tale of Two Cities, and Gramps definitely remembers the first few lines. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us, we had nothing before us. It was my Gramps who introduced me to Madame Defarge, to Sidney Carton, possibly the first man I ever fell in love with in fiction, and in the real world, and Charles Darnay, and the Marquis Saint-Amand. I, Alexander Manet, unfortunate physician and native of Beauvais, yeah, and of course Oliver Twist and Great Expectations, and David Copperfield, Barkis Willing, Peggotty, unforgettable characters to whom my Gramps introduced me. And another of his favourite poems is Laodamia by William Wordsworth. And my Gramps' favourite lines from this poem, Laodamia, I know these lines as well because I've heard them so often growing up, Jove frowned in heaven, the conscious Parse threw upon those roseate hips a Stygian hue. It's basically Laodamia's husband died in the Trojan War. He was the first to set foot upon Trojan soil, and apparently the Delphic oracle had predicted his death. The first to set foot on the soil would die, and accordingly he died. And Lady Maya missed him very much. Asked the gods for a boon that he be given back to her. And Joe, the god, obviously, decided that he would be back with her for 3 hours so Lady Maya could get closure. What happens is Lady Maya is not satisfied and she tries to hug him, but this isn't the man himself. It's a spirit. It's a spirit. That's a better word. And her hands grow through his form. So she insists that he kiss her, and Joe frowns. And he tells her, "Look, your love is very strong, but in reason you're very weak, because you've got to reason this out. I mean, somebody who's dead coming back to life. No, that's not how it works. So your reason is very weak." And anyway, she dies at the end, unable to bear her life without him. So it's a very powerful poem. And he also introduced me to essays of William Hazlitt and short stories by Maupassant and Somerset Maugham. There are certain works to which he introduced me that I wasn't hugely fond of either. The Way of All Flesh by Samuel Butler is a book that I found a bit dry, although I did go through the whole thing because he said it was the finest prose ever written. And Wodehouse, I wasn't a huge fan of the plot. I know this is possibly literary sacrilege. I'm not a Wodehouse fan. But it was Gramps who introduced me to Les Miserables. He doesn't like the musical. I adore the musical. Gramps prefers the book. My Gramps can read Les Miserables in French. I can't the English version. That's it. And I admit to skipping a lot of it, but I do read the entire thing from the introduction of the Ami, the cafe, Le ABC, until the death of Enjolras, who's possibly my favorite character in the book. I adore the musical equally well, but my Gramps doesn't. I mean, he even taught me French. I did study French for 4 years, but before that, he introduced me to the vocabulary, and I still have all his French textbooks. The only thing is, his pronunciation is proper. My pronunciation is utterly bollocksy. I mean, I say nous sommes, things like that. My pronunciation is crap. Gramps tried his best to correct me. So that's my Gramps for you in a nutshell, and that's why I haven't been posting videos. I promise I'll get back to it. Although I know nobody really watches this channel apart from Gramps himself, who doesn't now. But this video is dedicated to my granddad, who is possibly responsible for this entire channel. So yeah, I hope he gets better. Fingers crossed. And I'll speak to you next Sunday.